Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the Ted Show. I have a dear friend of mine here. I'm so excited and honored to have Jared Denison with us. He is a veteran and a realtor guru extraordinaire and an amazing friend to me and to the community. Welcome to Heroes Always Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Well, I feel very welcome. I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I've been wanting to have you on the show. We've been talking about you doing the show for a while. And you have such a great journey and a story. And you know, I think before we went live, I told you, I just want to highlight and spotlight veterans who are out there so that our veteran community, our active military community who may be transitioning out of the military, understand that there are opportunities out there. There are businesses you can get involved with because sometimes it can be a very difficult transition out. And a lot of people have ideas. They just don't know how to implement them. So without further ado, Jared, I told you that the audience loves an origin story. So tell them a little bit about you.
Sure. Let's start with how I ended up in Florida when I was in like second or third grade. So I call myself a Floridian. All right. I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm a well-mannered Floridian. All right.
Wow, that is a rarity.
Yeah.
No offense, Floridians.
Yeah, no offense, guys. But, I don't fit the stereotype, right? So it works out. So my parents moved us here for a great job for my dad. We lived in Cape Coral, so right where the hurricane just hit. I've got a bunch of family still down there. Grew up there, went to high school there. So obviously, the last few weeks have been a little stressful. Thank God most of everybody that I know has not only survived but also has their homes. I do have a few friends that lost some material things but didn't lose their lives, so we're working on helping them with that. Anyway, sorry for that.
No, I love that. If people forget,
yeah.
Look, just because there's new news items doesn't mean that people are not suffering.
Right. So I bring that up to say, even though most of us here, or in general in the whole state are like, oh, we can go get our gas, we can go get our food, no problem. There are still those that don't have that, which will kind of tie back into the veteran thing later, right? So, I grew up in Southwest Florida, Cape Coral, Fort Myers area, moved to UCF area for college. And never left. Some people probably wish I did. Some people
nobody wishes you left.
Some people are probably really glad I stayed.
One I believe.
I've got hundreds of people that are at least glad I stayed because I helped them get houses, right? So that worked out. Okay. So here you are. I'm at UCF. I was like 19, 18 years old, right? And my parents, they were loving family. I came from a very loving family, very supportive, which I know is a rarity, right? But we didn't have a whole lot of resources, right? We didn't have a whole lot of money. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth by any means. What I did grow up with was parents that taught me how to be tenacious, how to go for what I want, how to not let people tell you no, that you can't do something. And so when it came time to kind of figure out how the hell am I going to pay for this college thing, I applied for scholarships and I met mayors and shook hands and kissed babies and was forced to get comfortable getting uncomfortable, which is kind of a cliche in our industry, but it's so true. So I applied for scholarships and I think I got I'm sure my mom would have the dollar amount down, but I think it was $17,000, $18,000, right? So that was going to help me back then. I don't know what it does for college today, but back then that could get you through a year and a half, right? But the way that the school system was, and probably still is that if you have a certain amount above what you're required, they just disperse the rest of it to you for the semester.
Yes.
Well, that set me up for failure. You'd think it would set you up for success, but now I'm like, oh, cool. You gave me everything that I'm supposed to use for a year and a half in 6 months, and I'm 18. And
danger.
And there's a fraternity I'm hanging out with, and we're having a great time. And I'm not going to talk too much about how all that pans out, but let's just say that I went from never seeing 4 numbers in my bank account to having 4 or 5 numbers in my bank account, and that money was gone quick, and I didn't, of course, invest in things that mattered. I did a really good job of school, which was awesome, but I had no money left by probably the end of year 1.
Wow.
So I knew I was screwed, right? Yep. Can't go ask mommy and daddy for money. What I've got is a car, right? That's what I have. So I started looking at other options, and I talked to some family members, and one of my uncles was a military guy. He was a captain in the Army at the time, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you've thought about it, but you could join the military, whether you go full time and then eventually go back to school, or maybe there's another option. So I went and talked to some recruiters because in high school I was in JROTC. I knew all about the military side of things from that perspective. I had friends that were active duty, had friends in the Guard. So I started talking to recruiters. Now, Did I listen, Ted?
Not
really.
Guess not.
No, because there's a test called the ASVAB, which is what everybody has to take to get into the military. And I believe at the time the minimum passing score was a 32 out of 100. And a 32 would get you into the infantry, right? So you can shoot guns, throw grenades, crawl, and live outside. Fun stuff, right? So I got a 97 on the ASVAB, so I could pretty much do anything I wanted.
Wow.
And I could go to the Air Force and be really smart and kick ass on that side, or I could do Navy, or I could do Army, any job I wanted. But I was an 18-year-old male, right, with a big puffed chest, right? I was a lot bigger than I am now, okay? And so what did I do? I said, well, I want to be G.I. Joe, man. I want to be the infantry no matter what. So I went infantry, even though I got a 97. I could have put myself and 2 others in with that score, and I joined, and it was the most fun I never want to have again. All right. I loved it. There's a certain brotherhood there. Fellow grunts will tell you that's what we call ourselves, like legs, grunts, infantry guys. We call everybody pogues, which means people other than grunts. It's kind of a joke. So I loved it, right? It was great. I was basically between guard and active duty. And while I was actually at basic training and infantry school, and was basically, they did basic training, and then they had you spin around. They're like, hey, congratulations, you graduated. Now you're in infantry school. Like, it wasn't a graduation. After that, they brought in, I think it was a 2-star general, like very, very high ranking. And they're like, hey, we're actually over strength right now. This was 2008. We're over strength right now. On the active duty side, we're under strength on the guard. So we're going to give everybody an opportunity. You guys can choose to do contracts or whatever, or with basically doing National Guard versus active duty. And I'd already signed a contract that allowed me to be, National Guard. And so he was kind of reiterating it. So they gave me the option there. It's like, okay, you have a National Guard contract. You can either stay guard, and we're going to give you a bunch of stuff for doing it, or you can go active duty. Well, I just stayed with that guard contract because They also, what was my goal? My goal was to serve, but also get back to school and try to provide. So they were offering at that time $20,000 sign-on bonuses to stay infantry.
Wow.
You could go back home. At the time they were pitching like, oh, you want to get deployed once every 7 or 8 years, and you only work 1 weekend a month.
Wow.
That didn't happen. Okay. But they, again, $20,000 to anybody, quite a bit of money, but to an 18-year-old who doesn't have any money, it's like, okay, cool. That'll replenish everything for college. They pay for your college. They'll give you stipends, pay for books. Right. So I finished infantry school. And I went back, and I did go back to school right away. A lot of people take a gap and they don't go back.
They don't.
So I went right back in, and I did that. And my whole career and passion at the time was, how can I keep serving the community through the guard, but also just in general? So I joined a fraternity. I'm a TEAC from UCF.
I'm a Sigma Chi. We were talking about that earlier, from UCF.
Yeah. So pretty cool that we were in the same Greek life, come from those same bonds. And I was always about philanthropy and giving to others and caring about people. It's just part of my personality.
Where did you get that? Did your parents raise you that way, or is that something innate that you had?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think that my parents nurtured what was already kind of there.
Yes.
Because some people are like, oh, I have to learn to be, empathetic. And I think to an extent, like marrying my wife, like helped me be more empathetic in general, right? Maybe be a little more outward thinker and think about different people and groups and backgrounds.
Yes.
But I've always had a heart for helping others. And, just somebody gets in a car crash, I was always the one to just pull to the side of the road and run out to the car and figure it out, right? So that was actually why I was going to school. I was going to be a cop.
Oh, is that what you were going to do?
That was my dream, right? I wanted to be a police officer, and I wanted to get the degree so that I could climb up in the ranks and work in public service. That was my entire goal. So we're going to get a little personal here, Ted.
I like it.
It's going to get pretty personal pretty quick, but that's okay. This is my story. So I went through college, great grades, met a lot of great people. Then I'm like, okay, well, I can graduate and then go to the police academy. But then it's like your student loans are coming into effect in 6 months, and I'm on the hook for a payment, and I don't have a job. Or I can go to the police academy while I'm in school, keep that money flowing in, go to school and let the government pay for it. So I went ahead and went to the police academy.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I did the police academy my last semester. I'm actually on the wall at Valencia at the Criminal Justice Institute. I was in BLE 1202, which means the second class of 2012. basic law enforcement course. I was the president of the class.
Of course you were. On my mind.
Yeah. So, so defensive tactics, working out, learning all these different things. And I loved it, right? So I started applying for these jobs, and I'm like, look, I've got a perfect background, right? I've got a 3.6 GPA, criminal justice. I've got National Guard experience, infantry, and I've already gone to the police academy, right? Should be a shoe-in. I start getting feedback, and it's like, well, you passed everything and you didn't lie on your polygraph, but what you said on your polygraph is affecting our ability to hire you. Because at the time, they were hugely against like anything marijuana related whatsoever. Okay. And I, smoked a little marijuana here and there at parties or whatever. And I just admitted to it because I thought that was the right thing to do. Right. And nope, I got smacked down for that. And I wasn't basically hireable anywhere. Of course, 4 or 5 years later, they were all reaching back out to me and saying, hey, we've changed our views on things. Too late, right? But here I am. My entire life's crashing down around me. I have a great job with the Guard, but it's only maybe one weekend a month, 4 or 5 days of pay, right? I can try to do odd jobs. I'm about to graduate. I'm not hireable in my entire field I've been waiting for 5 years for. So what do you do, right?
Wow, I had no
idea. Yeah. So what do I do? I reached out to my fraternity brothers. I'm like, hey, I need a job, right? And one of them brought me in to a shipping department, and I'll save all the details, but I worked my way up from being a person that just tapes boxes together to the manager of the receiving side, to working in customer service, to managing customer service, and being basically the director of customer service, like direct to consumer and working with the clients. And that's about the highest I could reach with that company because there were just not as many opportunities there. It was a family-run business. They now own an immense amount of coffee shops around town, and they're very successful. I love them for the opportunities they gave me, but I just reached a certain point.
Sure.
And so I jumped to a sales position with Pearson at the time.
Had you done sales before?
I had not.
So what was that like? Because I think a lot of people think they can do sales.
Yeah.
Because it seems glamorous. It seems, ooh, you get to make your own schedule. And so what was it like for you?
It was difficult. I think the biggest thing in sales is that if you don't believe in the product, you're going to fail.
Amen to that.
Right. So at first I believed in the product, and it was about like adult consumers and like adult learners and stuff. And I loved it. But then once the griminess of the corporate world started to sink into the product, and it was more about money than it was about people, I lost my passion.
Sure.
So that worked out great for me. It was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I had a 401k. I had, benefits. Like, what the hell? This is awesome. I met my wife there, right?
Oh, there it is. That's awesome.
I met my wife there, and then I got deployed, right? So then the Guard's like, hey, we're deploying you. I was a sergeant by this time, and I got deployed for over a year throughout Africa, mostly in the East Coast in Djibouti. Yeah, say that twice.
I didn't even know Djibouti.
Yeah. So it's
existed.
DJIBOUTI, Djibouti. And it was Djibouti, because it was the capital, which is inside of the country, Djibouti, inside the continent of Africa. A lot of people think Africa is a country. It's not.
It's a continent, folks.
It's really big. Just saying. You guys going to get learned today.
Geography lesson is good.
So anyways, I got deployed. And that was an eye-opening experience because, I have friends that have gotten deployed 5 times to Iraq, Afghanistan, trench fighting, war, urban mountains, you name it, right? I've got friends that have done it all. And for me, it was less combative and more a presence patrolling of, kind of we're there to support the community and puff our chest and make sure that people don't attack the community versus active warfare kind of stuff. But yeah, it was eye-opening because there was poverty I'd never seen before. There were, you drive by in a convoy and there were kids begging you for food and you had to keep going, right? Because if you stop, who knows what the reasoning is for that. You just don't know. People fighting over food, people sheltering themselves when you point a camera because all you're trying to do is capture where you are, but they think that their soul is going to get stuck in the camera like crazy. And I don't mean crazy to be rude. I just mean like, to me, crazy ideas that just didn't fit in Western world society, right? So it just kind of shook me to the core of like, who am I? What am I really doing with my life? Is that what I want to do? Is just go back to chained to a desk and make as much money as possible, or do I want to make a difference and help people? So I told my wife, I was like, and that's a whole other story for a whole other day. But we got married within like 6 months of knowing each other.
Nice.
Freaked out my
Meant
whole
to be.
family. You know,
Meant to be.
Got married in the front yard of someplace. You know, no, I'm just kidding. It was a close family friend, but still, it was very fast, very quick. A lot of family was like, "What the hell are you doing?" We've been married 7 years, coming up here in January 30th next year. So I told her, I said, I don't feel passionate of coming back and going to that job anymore. You know, and she's like, honestly, I don't either. So now here we are, 6-figure household income, benefits, 401ks, and we're both like, screw it,
Hated
you know,
It's time.
let's leave. So I come back and she's working at Sprinkles Cupcakes and Disney. And don't get me wrong, great cupcakes, not great pay. Okay. Right. No benefits, no 401k. And I have no job. I'm just back and, you know, getting off of the government funds that they give you for 3 months while you figure it out. And I did have a pretty good sum of money in my bank account because I'm not going to spend a lot of money in Africa. And, you know, there's not much to spend money on there, Ted. Well, at least where I was. So I just said, you know what do I really want to do? And I wanted to help people have some time freedom, which time freedom, guys. All right. If you're going to get into real estate, fellow vets too, time freedom is not going to be a thing for a while because you have to build a business.
That's true.
Okay. I didn't know that going in. I just thought, oh, realtors just talk for a living. It's great. They just walk around, open doors. I mean, what the heck?
That's all they do.
Yeah. So I did go into it a little blind, but I just had a passion for like, you know what? I want to eventually, I got to the point where in my head, I'm like, I want to live off of 10% of my income someday and give away 90% of it. That's my whole goal in life is I want to live off and give away 90. How do you do that? Well, you have to be rich. And people say that they think money is the root of all evil. It's not.
That's
the
right.
love of money is the root of all evil. Okay. So I had to crush that money mindset that was scarcity focused. And it was all about, you can't be about money. No, you certainly can. Let me tell anybody watching, you can absolutely be about money. It's what you do with that money and why you're passionate about it that makes the difference.
Yes.
So I had to work on that. And once I broke that mold in my head, it was like the whole world was my oyster, man. It was just like, okay, let's invest some money in this business. Let's shake hands, kiss babies, meet as many people as I can, go back to those college friends. I've got a 5-year database. I just don't think about it that way.
Sure.
Right. So let's reach out to people and let's grow together. And yeah, you know what? I'm new to this, but I've got a broker that knows what the hell they're doing. So trust me, let's jump into this together. Right. And people did. And it worked out. I mean, obviously I shouldn't not braggadocious. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'm here right now. I'm not chained to a desk.
No.
I'm doing what I want to do today, and I'm helping people. And I'm not giving away 90% of my income yet, but I'm giving way more than my 10% tithe I was giving years ago. Okay.
What was that like when you? So why real estate then? Like, what was?
Sure.
How did you go? How did you make? Because you could have landed anywhere. You could have landed in any kind of sales or independent sales contractor kind. Why real estate?
So I went back to looking at, like my uncle, who was the captain of the military, had really climbed up really high with companies like vice president levels and had more money than anybody I'd ever known, you know, personally. And I have another uncle that built his own business. And again, the two of them had the most money of anybody I knew personally. And something they both had in common was they owned homes and invested time and money into either real estate, whether it was commercial or residential. And so then that opened my mind to going, okay, well, let me research millionaires, right? What's the most common investment among millionaires? And it was basically just S&P 500 and real estate. And I'm like, well, real estate's something I can sell. It takes a lot less to get a real estate license. The barrier to entry was very low than going for working for Raymond James or something, right? I've got friends that work for RJ. Great. They're doing great. Right. But it was way easier to get into real estate. And I thought, that's something where I can talk to people on a personal level, meet with them physically at homes, meet them in their homes, make a difference. It's something everybody wants to know about and talk about anyway.
Yes.
And it's something that every millionaire, billionaire that I've ever researched has in their portfolio. So if I want to be that person, the bold's already there. Why don't I just take that idea and chase it? Why would I reinvent the wheel? And that's been a passion of mine. I've done that throughout my career. Like right now, I'm a private investor in some individual businesses and stuff like that. My primary focus is real estate. Those things just work for me in the background. Why? Because I'm constantly focused on surrounding myself. I don't want to be the biggest fish in the pond. I want to be like the nothing dude in the room. Like, oh, you only make 150, 200,000. Cool. That would be great to be the only making 250, 200,000 so that these guys are making millions. And then guess what? we talk and they tell me what they're investing in, and I invest whatever I can into that. And they tell me what they did to get rich, and I do more of those things. So that's what I do.
Tell people, especially our veterans and,
Sure.
and military who might be transitioning out or about to, when you're making that decision of what you want to do, that tends to be what the challenge. That's the challenge I've always heard from my veteran friends. So, what can you give them a tip or two on what they should try? Because it's not, you shouldn't just go out blindly. You should really think about where your passion is. And I'm going to let you explain that or give them some insight.
So I'm going to give two things of advice. Number one, I'm going to tell you how I did it. And number two, I'm going to tell you what I would have done. All right. So my biggest passion came from just taking time to be by myself and think about what was I happy about when I was a kid, right? What did I love when I was a kid? I loved playing with my friends, and I loved like basically numbers. Like I always loved numbers, playing with my friends and being a leader. Like I was always trying to be the chief, right? Whatever. Any game we played, I wanted to be the leader. So, okay, how do I connect that to making money in today's adult world?
Right.
Well, I need to find a job that is all about meeting people and trying to be a leader and dealing with numbers. So then I started Googling. Google was my best friend.
Google's awesome.
I literally Googled like jobs, make friends, meet people, invest money. Boom. Oh, here's a list of jobs if you like these passions. And then you look through them and then wait till something clicks. But I wish I had known about the power of counseling for multiple reasons, right? For the things I talked about that I saw that are nothing compared to some of the things my other veterans have seen. And I don't mean to downgrade my service. I just mean to reach the population of veterans that are out there that have been there, done that with even harder things than I'll ever experience in my life, and just say that if counseling could help me, what could it do for you? You know, I think a counselor can really help to break those, whatever that block is in your head that says, I can't do this, or, oh, this is too hard. And honestly, the military has gotten a little bit better about it. But when I left, they introduced us to a program called TAPS, which was called the Transition Assistance Program. I don't know what they asked for. And that shows you how effective it was, right? So it was like an online thing that you click through on this passion survey crap. And it's like, oh, this is what you do. And you go to the VA and ask for resources. Well, you know what? There's nobody more passionate about your life than you, right? So you can go meet with people and they can try to tell you about what your passions are, but they're getting a snippet of you in 30 minutes or an hour. And how can they know you in 30 minutes or an hour? So you should really do that for yourself. And the best way to do that is go use your free VA counseling, transition that into talking to somebody and say, hey, I'm lost. You know, this has been my career for 10, 15, 20 years. The only thing I know is shooting guns, throwing grenades, and scaring people. What do I do, right? Yes. Or the only thing I know is my brotherhood and my sisters, and now I'm in a completely different state. I don't know anybody, and I'm supporting my wife on 3 months of income, and I'm going to be lost here in a second. I don't know what to do. And tell them that, and just break down. And you can't let go of something that you haven't held on to. So if you can hold on to those feelings, and you can actually sit there in them for a little bit, and then go, you know what, that felt good to say. I'm going to let that go. And I'm going to move on, right? Continue mission, Charlie Mike. That's going to help you immensely. And I wish I'd known that, because I think I would be light years ahead of where I'm at now.
I love that you shared that, because I think a lot of people, there's a stigma to counseling.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely a stigma, military counseling coming out, because there's a trust. Immediately, you're not in the same anymore. Also, a lot of times, back in the old days, I don't know how old, in the military, if you ever demonstrated anything that might have impacted or impeded your potential performance, it tended to impact your experience in the military. Right. So getting out, veterans are shy of it. They don't want to do it. They're gun shy. Yeah. So I'm so happy. Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so important for people. The stigma is only in your mind. And if you don't have the support system to support you, you are still your best support and advocate, right, like Jared said. Right. And so I would encourage you to do the same thing, military or not. Right. If you need to release, you have a lot of stuff going on, you should absolutely seek out a professional. I think that is fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's talk a little bit before we head out, let's talk a little bit about the market.
Okay.
We were talking before we went live that there's a lot of chicken littles out there. The sky is falling. Yeah. The sky is falling. What do you see?
So I see opportunity. I see opportunity on every side. Talking for consumers, if you're a seller, yeah, did you miss the peak? You sure did. And I'm not going to lie to you, right? Other agents are going to be like, oh no, it's still the best time. It's not. Your best time was 6 months ago, but it's still a great time because while the roller coaster was like this from 2008 till now, it's still here was 6 months ago. It's right here, guys. So just catch it before it continues to decrease for you, because the Fed's going to keep trying to beat up this, right? And how are they going to do that? They're going to continue to raise rates to try to get people to control spending so that inflation is not as much of an issue. Well, until we reach whatever that level is, rates are going to have to keep going up. So that means less demand from buyers, less buyers in the market, and more opportunity for the few borrowers that remain and cash investors, but also for a seller, obviously less competition. Go back to our high school classes of supply and demand. Less competition means price has to go down, okay? So that price downward is going to continue for a little while. Then I think we're going to transition back to our normal maybe 5% increase on homes over the next few years instead of 20 and 30%. I mean, your guys is, if you're at my age, I'm 33, okay? So anybody my age or behind, we've all experienced these markets like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing, 20, 30% in 1 year. Yeah, your parents and your parents' parents, it was like 10% across 7 or 8 years, okay? You might have gotten 30% on your entire life of selling that one house, okay? So let's just get back to basics. What do you do? As a buyer, why do I see opportunity? Well, because of the same reasons, right? If you allow a market to scare you out, then you're not even competing, means you're not going to get the opportunity. Does it suck to pay $300, $400 more a month than you would have paid 6 or 8 months ago? Absolutely, right? I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat it for you because that's just not the kind of person I am. Yeah, would it have been great to lock in 2.75 or 3.75 instead of 6.75? Absolutely. However, at least you can lock 6.75,
right?
And you might not get the house that you love for the rest of your life. And you know what? Your parents and your parents' parents that actually grew with wealth, they didn't buy the home that was their first home and their forever home either. Buy what you can afford as soon as you possibly can if you're renting, because rent is going to just keep skyrocketing.
It's insane here too,
right?
It's everywhere, but certainly here.
The opportunity is not only one to be an actual investor and invest in yourself and get the write-offs for the investments that you upgrades you do to your home and writing off the interest on your mortgage and owning an asset that should increase over time, even if it's not 2 or 3 years, 7 to 10 year scale, you're going to make money. Okay. And then you can keep moving that into the next home. But if you don't do that, your only potential is wait for a crash. Okay. Well, this is why I like to talk about too, Ted.
I love it. Go.
We talk about a crash. Okay. Let's go there. Let's just go there fiscally. So let's go with a $400,000 house, which is around the median price of homes in Orlando right now. I think it's like $417,000. $400,000 house. You guys that are waiting for a crash, let's say that, what do you consider a crash? 20%. Okay. Let's take that number. So if you're at a $400,000 purchase price and you bought it today at 6.75% interest rate, assuming that whatever, we worked out all the numbers and you had a $2,500 a month payment. Okay. You have a $2,500 a month payment. That's at today without the crash, right? So there's not a whole lot of volatility in the market other than inflation. That's really all we're worried about right now. What causes crashes, right? Market volatility, people being scared. What do investors not like to do in a market crash? Pour lower interest rates and give you great deals, okay? So let's just say that $400,000 house for some crazy reason flips down to now a $320,000 house. Number one, people that are afraid of short sales, foreclosures, the market we've had over the last 5 years has been very strong borrowers based off super strong guidelines, high down payments, and paying above appraised value to support that market value. So even if they lost 20%, they were gaining 20% last year, guys. So if they bought 2 years ago, they've got 40%. So even if it flips 20%, you know what they're going to do? They're not going to sell. They're not going to flood the market with inventory. They're not going to go into foreclosure. They're just going to stay where they're at, locked in. So we have no more inventory. So great, you have a market crash. And unless you're a cash buyer, is that really an opportunity for you? I would submit that it's not, because you're still going to have to go to the bank and get a loan. And what's the bank going to say? Look around.
Yeah.
The market's crashing. The sky is falling. We're not doing 6.75% anymore. We're at 13, 14, 15% because it's super high risk for us. And now that $2,500 payment on the $400,000 is $2,500 or more on the $320,000. So your effective monthly payment is still the same, even though the number is different. So you're waiting for no reason, and it's not because you're not doing what you think is right. It's because you don't know what you don't know, right? And I don't really like to say I educate people, because I think that makes it sound like people are stupid. You're not. You just aren't in it every day. Right. I like to say that I inform people, right? So if you're waiting for a crash, just think about, take it all the way. That's what counseling teaches you to do too. Take your worst thought and take it all the way down and ride that crash. And in your mind, do you really think investors are still going to give you the same rates today when the market just crashed? No. And I would even submit to say that the market's not going to crash. But again, even if you take it worst case scenario, it still makes sense to invest today.
Best discussion. We needed to hear that. We all need to hear it. We all need to be reminded of it. All right. So before we head out, you can go to jareddenison.com. That's the best way to reach Jared or on.
It's Jared with 2 R's.
Two R's. Yes. It's jarred. I'm not going to ever be able to forget that. It's a jarring experience. It's a jarring experience. I always like to ask a personal question. Okay. I know you shared a bunch. Okay. When I say the word hero to you, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Oof. I just thought about my friend Brian, honestly. I mean, the dude's deployed like 5 different times, and he just doesn't complain about it. I mean, he does what he needs to do. If he complains, it's like to me. It's not out to the public. It's not to his fellow soldiers or the people below him. It's just either his fellow friends, or he just grinds and does what he needs to do. And that's dangerous, right? I think of hero, I automatically thought of somebody who just does what needs to be done and then kind of keeps it themselves. And that's the problem with being a hero, right? Is we have to have people to talk to. Like, so that's what I think.
I love it. All right. Jared Denison, thank you for your service. You know, I appreciate it. Love and appreciate you. You all reach out to Jared. Look, take that information that he just shared with you. Blew my mind. I'm going to have to watch it over again just so I can absorb all of it. But you can go to jareddenison.com, or you can reach out to me. We'll obviously tag you so that people can find you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
It was awesome. I love you too. All right, guys, we'll be back. Take his advice. All right, bye.